The Age of Godfrey was an age of war, during which the Elden Lord led a Golden Crusade conquering and expanding the empire of the Erdtree. This was primarily against fellow men. After the giants were quelled, man turned against man in violence. Godfrey fought not for himself, but for Queen Marika. Consequently, statues of Marika rather than Godfrey can be found throughout the land. Only in unique locations are there depictions of Godfrey. The statues of Marika are usually found in churches, each with specific names that give an indication of their purpose and the likely time they were built. Of particular interest are those named the Churches of Marika. These churches were specifically constructed to commemorate the expansion and conquest of Marika's empire, as illustrated by the first Church of Marika. Here, Marika herself issued instructions to her brave warriors as well as to Godfrey, urging them to put the giants to the sword. In this way, these churches and statues serve as significant landmarks, not only preserving the memory of Godfrey's conquests geographically, but also chronologically. There are a total of 4 Churches of Marika. Together, they illustrate the path taken by Godfrey during his crusade. The first Church of Marika is located in the mountaintops of the Giants. The second church lies in the west of the Altus Plateau. The third church stands on the border between Limgrave and Caelid, while the fourth church can be found in the west of the Weeping Peninsula. Thus did Godfrey sweep across the lands between, from north to south. Indeed, the second church may indicate that the traitorous snakes were targeted straight after the giants. Whatever the case was, the snake faction was overthrown, and snakes became a rare sight in the lands between. Most in the present day are found hiding as snails, but they yet retain their knowledge of the previous era and their connection to the dragons. Godfrey's prowess was truly unparalleled. In the days of the past, a crown was warranted with strength. Throughout his entire campaign, he remained undefeated, all the while having his bloodlust suppressed by Sarosh. Furthermore, Godfrey fought with honor and showed mercy during his reign. He accepted surrender, incorporating conquered adversaries into his ranks, a fact underscored by the diverse backgrounds of the Tarnished. When Godfrey, first Elden Lord, was robbed of his grace, he took with him his kinfolk, the Tarnished. From Draconians to Northerners, aristocrats to Reedlanders, all were welcome. After all, Tarnished were all warriors once. Godfrey respected his foes and sought to avoid bloodshed whenever possible, as he likely did previously with Sarosh. Indeed, the siege of Castle Morn near the end of his crusade depicts this clearly. A lone hero fights for his vengeance, only to fall at the hand of Lord Godfrey. But this warrior was given a choice, a story told by the grafted blade greatsword, once wielded by a hero hungry for vengeance. A revenger's weapon, it is burdened with oceans of anger and regret. A lone surviving champion was so determined to continue fighting that he claimed the swords of an entire clan of warriors. This proud warrior refused to yield to Godfrey, and thus his country's legacy is now vanished. Such a story was surely not uncommon, and the memory of many cultures was erased during the Golden Crusades. But warfare was not all that marked this era. While the Crusades wrought destruction across the realm, in its wake, the Erdtree Empire expanded and flourished. Roads were built throughout the lands between to facilitate transfer of goods and travel, or so it seems at first. However, a closer inspection reveals a remarkable detail on these ruined roads. On each and every panel of these paths, found in almost every region of the lands between, is an Elden Ring motif. This Elden Ring is unique, distinct from both Marika's and the dragons. It features 4 rings symmetrically arranged, positioning that features in the middle of the dragon's iteration. However, the dragon's Elden Ring has far more rings, and a number of spirals. In contrast, Marika's design features the same number of rings, and very similar patterning on the sigil, only the position of one ring is different. So could these roads markings have therefore been an early iteration of Marika's Elden Ring, the initial form that was then adapted over time? Considering the earliest Erdtree incantations exhibit the Erdtree Crucible sigil, which features Marika's current Elden Ring, it is unlikely that the outdated design would continue to be used as the road was extended during Godfrey's reign. Furthermore, there are two designs for the roads. The majority consist of a single lane with square tiling. However, the road between Leyendell and Liurnia showcases a different design which features two lanes bisected by a gutter, and the tiling is arranged diagonally. Additionally, there are circular features which are integrated into the design, indicating they were not later additions. If these roads were constructed during Godfrey's reign, why would the path to Liurnia be deemed the most crucial? These aged roads stretch across the entire expanse of the lands between. Originating from Leyendell, they wind down through Liurnia, traverse Limgrave, and extend into Caelid. They are found heading towards Mount Gelmir, within the shaded castle, and by the apostate church in the wintry north. But perhaps the most significant in establishing their origins is their presence on both the Grand Lift of Dectus and the Grand Lift of Rold. A curious detail, as there appears to be conflicting information surrounding the lifts. As previously established, the Grand Lift of Rold was not operational during the war against the Giants. The Rold medallion reinforces this, portraying two fire giants impaled by briars of sin, placing it after the executions at the war's conclusion. This implies that their construction occurred later during Godfrey's reign. However, there is more than just the symmetric Elden Ring path that contradicts this timeline, for carved into the wall behind both lifts is a depiction of the World Tree's form that preceded the Crucible. Taking a step back, the grandeur flanking the path that leads up to the lifts instead features the later Erdtree depictions, including right above the entrance. And then there are also statues with an Erdtree design that were added at a later period, evident from the contrast in colour compared to the previous constructions. So it becomes clear, these prestigious landmarks have been changed and adapted over time, and their origins were once far more modest than seen in the present day, and consisted only of the paths and the structures within the cliffsides. The Elden Ring paths date to the age before the Crucible, constructed likely as part of the Banished Knights Empire. This empire had positive relations between Leyendell and the Academy via the Nox, and its reach extended across the entirety of the lands between, from the consecrated snowfields to Caelid, as is further illustrated by the catacombs. In this realization, a theme of Marika comes into focus. The Erdtree catacombs were not originally for Erdtree burial. The heroes' graves were built before her civilization. The divine towers were not made for the two fingers. The roads of the land predate the Erdtree Empire. The fortified manor was repurposed. The grand lifts, the divine bridges, Stormvale Castle, Leyendell, and even the Elden Ring, all was just adapted. Marika did not create, she did not develop or discover or invent. She simply repurposed previous creations as her own. After slightly editing them, she occluded history, controlled the spread of information, and rewrote it all under the Erdtree banner. Marika was certainly a curious juxtaposition next to the Gloam-Eyed Queen. The former centered on the creation of life, where the latter delivered life's death, and yet it was the latter that generated culture, diversity, development, and ultimately the cycles of life. Marika only halted life's progress and stalled the development of the age. Her actions generated true stagnation. Even rot, purported to be stagnation, is in fact
the cycle of decay and rebirth.
Overly energetic life with a high rate of turnover. It is even possible that Marika took action against any Empyreans to prevent a new god to forge a new order.
In the age of the Elden Ring and Queen Marika, the precious Empyrean was born, a new god to forge a new order.
The phrasing Gowry uses implies that the ages before Marika were different, and Empyreans were more abundant. Indeed, in recent history, there is no evidence of godskin activity, but there must have been a time where they amassed such volumes of skin. Could Marika during her rule have eliminated Empyreans as soon as they were born, before knowledge of them arose? Thus, the only Empyreans that survived her reign were those she could not silence, whose lineage rendered them untouchable. Nonetheless, there were plenty of cultural developments during the Age of Godfrey, even if they were not entirely original. The Erdtree's old sap was treasured as the most precious of jewels in the Age of Godfrey. Perhaps the physic chemists, priests of the Erdtree, date this far back, whose creation harnesses the power of crystal tears, which only form after the passage of many moons. Ritual combat was organized in the Colosseums that can still be found in every land. Again, these structures were simply repurposed, built during the previous age. Talismans were created in the image of the Crucible Knights, who presumably partook in the festivities held to honor the Erdtree. The combat reenacted in the arenas presumably depicted the defeat of the Snakes, where Crucible Knights would defeat the Serpent Gladiators. The audience delighted in seeing these bronze effigies beaten and battered. The Round Table Hold continued to be a gathering place of champions, and like the Colosseums, encouraged the strong to rise up and join the army's ranks. The Two Fingers were vital throughout this time and took a far more active role than seen in the present day. Champions would gather at the Round Table Hold in days past, when the Two Fingers were masters of oration, their flesh yet full of vigour. Banished knights were also recruited and rewarded with golden blessings on their equipment. The tree sentinels were established at the beginning of the age, if not before. Very few are permitted to wear a golden wood crest of such size as seen on this helm. Imposingly sturdy and nigh unbreakable, the grace of old yet lingers. Blessed by an old incantation of protection, the living rampart of the Erdtree, the tree sentinels are the standard to which all defenders of the Erdtree aspire. Enormous statues in their likeness were then crafted and added to the grand lifts, and at the entrance of Leyendell as symbols of the Erdtree Empire, though their creation postdates the initial Erdtree structures there. Subsequently, a structured hierarchy of knights emerged. Armour worn by knights sworn to defend the royal capital of Leyendell. Its left breast is emblazoned with a symbol of Erdtree worship, said to have once been imbued with an incantation of protection. The golden canopy represents the honour of standing among the tree's defenders. In times of old, when faith and battle went hand in hand, the Erdtree Greatbow was created in tandem with the golden Great Arrow. Perhaps this period also marked the development of the Golden Vow incantation, taught to knights of the royal capital for generations, and knights sent on distant expeditions lean on it as a source of courage. Naturally, most Erdtree-related developments centered on combat, but compared to the present day, the Erdtree civilization was in fact much more open-minded. For example, this was likely when demi-humans were welcomed into Erdtree society.
Under the Erdtree, commingling with the demi-humans is made possible. Even the vulgar shall not be left behind, under the rule of true order.
However, as Kenneth discovers, this inclusivity is no longer the case in the present day, a discrepancy that serves to highlight a critical aspect of the Age of Godfrey. The expanding Erdtree Empire did not adhere to the Golden Order as it is known today yet, which focuses on Marika as the one true god, and instead centralized on the World Tree itself. And the evidence for this is multifold. Everything during this age paid homage to the Erdtree, not to the Golden Order. The seal and sigil of this era revolved around the binding of the Elden Ring within the Erdtree, and it was this Erdtree crest that was once the focus of religion in the lands between. The use of once implies that this is no longer the case, as later on, the Golden Order would redirect the focus of the Erdtree religion towards Marika.
The Golden Order is founded on the principle that Marika is the one true god.
The Great Bow specifically showcases Erdtree styling. The Knights of the Capital proudly identified as defenders of the Erdtree and were adorned with its image. Allusions to this era and its prevailing order consistently emphasize the Erdtree, as seen in phrases like "during the age of the Erdtree." Miriel goes further, explicitly labeling the order as the Order of the Erdtree.
Radagon once cleansed himself with celestial dew, repented his territorial aggressions, and swore his love to Renala. The Order of the Erdtree and the fate of the moon were conjoined.
In stark contrast, mentions of the Golden Order, which are noticeably less frequent, unmistakably shift away from the veneration of the Erdtree and instead concentrate on the concept of order itself. The ceremonial observation of order completely omits the tree from the previous design. The Golden Order's emblem also discards one of the most fundamental motifs in the lands between, the spiral. The symbol of the cycles of life, a revered concept found throughout the ages of the realm. The spirals of life continued until Marika sealed the Rune of Death, suddenly halting life's cycles. And famously, the Golden Order was created by confining destined death. Consequently, the once prominent spiral motif, even found throughout Erdtree Order designs, was expunged after the establishment of the Golden Order. Furthermore, all elements directly associated with the Golden Order can be traced back to, at the earliest, the Age of Radagon. The foundational principles of causality and regression have clear origins and themes in Radagon, who is consistently portrayed in the iconic Golden Order totality pose, an amalgamation of both the inner and outer order poses. Then there are the Rings of Light, which relate to either Radagon or his son Mikola. Immutable Shield depicts the brass shield, which was commonly employed in the Shattering. The rest of the Golden Order incantations focus on hunting those who live in death, who arose after the Night of Black Knives. The Golden Order Greatsword was crafted once Radagon was already King Consort. The tenets of the Golden Order also sharply deviate from Marika's, aligning instead with the ethos of Radagon himself. Fundamentalism is scholarship in all but name, using both intelligence and faith. Radagon studied sorcery, and he studied incantations. Thus did the hero aspire to be complete. In contrast, Marika later says,
"I declare mine intent to search the depths of the Golden Order through understanding of the proper way. Our faith, our grace is increased."
This illustrates a lack of understanding and suggests that the era preceding the Golden Order, preceding Radagon, was characterized solely by faith, the era of the Erdtree Order, whose associated incantations scale with faith alone. So, the Golden Order as seen in later years, distilled with fundamentalism, was yet to emerge. And going forward, the Order at this stage will be termed the Erdtree Order for ease of clarity. So, the spirals of life persisted during Godfrey's age, which gave significance to the endless warring of the era, to the ancient pact of the Erdtree Guardians, and establishes a chronological context that accounts for the integration of demi-humans into Erdtree society. Crucially, the Gloam-Eyed Queen and the dragons remained allied with the Erdtree through the beasts, and maintained their presence throughout Godfrey's reign. Something that wouldn't be possible once the Golden Order was established, and the Rune of Death sealed. After all, Gorank's former title, Death of the Demigods, couldn't have been earned before the beginning of the Erdtree Age, considering the first demigods were the Elden Lord Godfrey and his offspring. Instead, this title gained relevance much later, once numerous demigods had emerged. Amidst the turbulent times of war, Godfrey managed to produce a family line known as the Golden Lineage. Among his progeny were Godwyn the Golden, presumably, Mog and Morgott, twin brothers, Godric the Golden, and Godfrey the Grafted, who might also have been Godric's twin. Godwyn is surprisingly absent in history, surfacing only during the War Against the Dragons and later as a victim of the Night of the Black Knives. However, his deeds during the former conflict paint him as an honourable and formidable warrior. Morgott and Mog, however, were born into misery, labelled as the accursed people called the Omen. Bearing echoes of the chaos of the Age of the Crucible, they were likely dubbed Omens for embodying the imperfections of the desired order and the groundwork of the Erdtree. Their accursed blood was of shifting hue. Omen babies had all their horns excised, causing most to perish. Mog and Morgott, however, held royal status. Omen babies born of royalty do not have their horns excised, but instead are kept underground, unbeknownst to anyone, imprisoned for eternity. However, they still tainted the Golden Lineage, causing them to be kept under strictest confinement beneath Leyndell, never to see the light of day. Please don't hate me, or curse me, please. The number of Omen in the Shunning Grounds today emphasises how many of the royal lines have been plagued by Omen through the years, and in turn, the lack of stability of the Order.
The demigods are each and all the direct offspring of Queen Marika. Godric the Grafted was but a distant relation, the runt of the litter. His divine blood sorely diluted.
On first hearing this, it seems Godric is a distant descendant of Godfrey, born many years later. However, both Godric and Godfrey in their later years underwent the extreme process of grafting, a procedure that literally diluted their divine blood, weakening their direct relation. Furthermore, Godric is a shard-bearer, wields a bespoke axe emblazoned with the figure of a beast, and was esteemed enough to have participated in Leyndell's meetings. Morgott even addresses him respectfully as
Godric the Golden.
Similarly, Godfrey possesses the Godfrey icon, a legendary talisman depicting the Elden Lord. Together, these details suggest that they were not merely distant descendants of Godfrey that arose many generations later, but direct offspring who sullied their blood and family name over time. There is little information about their early years, likely a sign of their cowardice, which became more apparent as time went on. Indeed, while the Golden Crusades wrought war and havoc across the lands between, life within the capital likely unfolded as if in an age of peace. The power of the Erdtree resulted in the birth of numerous scions of great families, but the burgeoning population of nobility became accustomed to a life of excessive luxury. These shields were at times seen as the hallmark of little lordlings who were too timid to earn a few nicks and scratches. And yet, even in times of peace, an Erdsteel dagger was carried by the Erdtree royalty for self-defense, illustrating the tone of Leyndell society. Beyond the Erdtree faction, various other civilizations underwent significant developments during the Age of the Erdtree. Beware the fire monks' chariots bearing the faces of giants. Clearly, the fire monks were skilled craftsmen, and were likely employed to actively spread fear of the fire giants in the population. Over time, however, the fire monks softened in their role as guardians. Fire beguiles those who gaze into it, and so the guardians of the flame are also its worshippers. The monks put in place reminders to distance themselves from fire. This incantation leaves the caster with subtle burns, a reminder that they must fear the flame. But even this proved insufficient. It is said the cauldron perched atop the head was originally furnished with embers, and would surge into flames when the wearer's faith reached its zenith. The fire of this cauldron has since died out, however. So, the most hallowed monk prelate of the Giant's Flame, Byrak severed his own head as a lesson to the others. intending it to be used as a candle stand. His faith yet smoulders from within the cranial vessel, and still, not all was strong enough to resist the allure of fire. The Black Flame monks, enthralled by the god-slaying Black Flame, became traitors, abandoning their posts as guardians. The seduction of a taboo is never easily spurned. After all, the power of the Black Flame, the Rune of Death, was not yet sealed away. It would be some time, however, before the prelates themselves faltered in turn. Banished knights evolved into the role of wandering mercenaries and found work throughout the realm. As illustrated later by Engval and Oleg, these knights operated independently and displayed no specific allegiance to their former comrades. Deathbirds persisted across the land, yet their vulnerability to holy power likely compelled them to lurk in the shadows as time went on. Various meteorites likely struck the lands between over the age, and meteoric beings continue to rise throughout the realm. Then, over in Liurnia, a young Carian astrologer gazed at the night sky as she walked. She had always chased the stars every step of her journey. Then she met the full moon, and in time, the astrologer became a queen. Caria and the Academy were initially separate entities, but in her youth, Renala was a prominent champion who charmed the Academy with her lunar magic, becoming its master. Renala's connection to the full moon bestowed upon her extraordinary power, enabling her to achieve remarkable feats. Queen Renala encountered this enchanting moon when she was young, and later, it would bewitch the Academy. She also led the Glintstone Knights and established the House of Caria as royalty. The alliance between Caria and the Academy solidified at the latest during the early age of Godfrey. A new, mighty faction, unified by Queen Renala's leadership and allied to the Nox. Liurnia was poised for greatness, or so it seemed. Thank you for joining for this episode on the timeline of Elden Ring. For more, consider supporting the channel and get early access to upcoming releases. You can also have your own theories featured in video format on the channel, or even get access to new Lore Before Bed videos ad-free for less than $1. Your support makes content like this possible, so thank you.